Okay, it says we are now live. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom with Carlito and Tom. I have, well, first of all, I want to apologize that I haven't been very active, and that's due because of, I've been like overwhelmed with so much work lately, and like even on weekends when I normally do my podcast on Saturdays, I've been so, tired from work because I do work Saturdays, and I'm off on Sundays only. So that being said, that's the reason why I haven't really been too active on my channel, Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom on YouTube, or my group on Facebook either. I mean, I know I'm pretty sure most of y'all noticed that I haven't been in there as much like I used to, commenting and posting stuff and whatever. But yeah. Anyway, well, I just want to let y'all know what's going on with that with me, just so y'all know, because I feel like I owe y'all that explanation. And well, that being said, let's go ahead and start the show. I have a very special guest tonight here, Dennis Carrol. I met Dennis on William Nighthawk's podcast, which is High Strangeness, also, right, Dennis?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he actually asked me to join one of his shows one day, and Dennis was on there, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, Dennis?" And we started talking, and we started the show, and and I joined the show. Actually, I didn't start the show. I joined the show, and we all kind of just fed off each other's ideas, and it was great. It was a great show. But anyway, I have Dennis here tonight, guys, because I consider Dennis as a very knowledgeable person in this cryptid field, because he has over 55 years researching this. And just real quick, I'll let y'all know he has a website, and he sent it to me, and it says he's on his presentation deal. It says he's a paranormal consultant and investigator. He's also a UFO cryptid investigative researcher. He's also a folklorist. He's also a published author, by the way, which he has 4 books, which Dennis will let y'all know here in a little bit. And he's also a co-host on the podcast Into the Red Rabbit Hole. Is that correct, Dennis?
Uh-huh.
Alrighty. And I just kind of want to fill everybody in, Dennis, on what your background is, and if you could just let everybody know, like, a brief bio on yourself, when you started this, what got you in it, and everything. I asked all my guests for that, Dennis, if you could, brother, please.
Yeah, I've been investigating and been researching in all fields of the paranormal probably for over 55 plus years, Carlito. It's never got old to me. It's always been a fascinating and interesting subject. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different avenues that we can go down in our research for these things. The cryptid part of it has always been very interesting to me, mm-hmm. along with the UFOs and well, spiritual researches. I don't really call myself a ghost hunter. That term has been done to death, by the way. Mm-hmm. I sort of feel like it's more like spiritual research
right.
When you talk about these things. But I've had many strange paranormal experiences, even since when I first got started in all this, when I was about I think about 14 years old, when I had my first paranormal experience where I actually saw demonic spirits. So I've also tackled the areas of demonology a good bit as well. In my research.
Dennis, you mentioned to me earlier when we were backstage that you started at a very, very young age. What age was that?
Well, I was going to tell about the little experience I had with Dogman. One of the things that's very interesting to me. We were talking earlier before the show about the different aspects of these cryptids. And some of these things are related to some of these Earthlight anomalies that have been reported around, like we were talking about the Brown Mountain Lights. Now, if people aren't familiar with the Brown Mountain Lights, that is a Brown Mountain in North Carolina where these lights are supposedly seen on the mountain and above the mountain as well. and these lights have supposedly been seen for hundreds of years. So it's not really car automobile lights, as some people have claimed.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you seem to find cryptid activity or even supernatural type activity, you find these lights as well. As a matter of fact, they've been even reported in some instances before volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. So there's something, I think, actually tied to the energy of the earth itself. And I think these cryptids also, especially I think Bigfoot, Sasquatch, may have a direct connection to this stuff.
Right. And I remember you mentioning something about those the brown lights, the brown mountain lights, I should say, that maybe there could be some type of portal or something because there's a high activity rate there with cryptids, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about possibility that some of these cryptids utilize portals in order to go from one reality to another or one dimension, whatever tag you want to put on it. That they would basically use these kind of portals, this energy, you might say, to do this. It would also cause some feedback, I think, and it would be seen perhaps in something like some of these Earth-light anomalies that are reported. As I said earlier, some reports have come to me of some people claiming that Bigfoot itself can actually look like a tree when it wants to, or take on the aspects of a tree. And as I said earlier, even parts of nature that we know, like the chameleon and all that, they can look like what they want to. They can perfectly camouflage themselves. And in some ways, they're like almost shape-shifting here, to that extent.
Well, they're not called the best hide and go seek champions there is for nothing. You know what I mean? I think they have the best ability to hide and to camouflage within the woods and Mother Nature. I think they're the best ones at that, man. I really do.
Oh yeah. And if you're going to be a survivor, especially out in the wild, you're going to have to utilize something like that. Even military realizes that camouflage is very important stuff to blend in with the countryside, to become part of it. I've told a lot of researchers that, Carlito, if you're going out looking, I don't care what it is you're looking for, whether it's Dogman, Gugwheel, whatever it is, you got to become part of the land. You don't need to stand out. You need to blend in. That's what you got to do. And even the best deer hunters will tell you that the best way to kill a deer, and I've done a lot of deer hunting, is to wait for them to come to you.
Right.
You can go down and walk around and scout out, find what you're looking for, but that's when you need to stop and you need to go somewhere, blend in and watch and wait. That's one thing I always said about the Ghost Hunters TV show. You never see the boring parts of it, the hours and hours that you just sit there listening and waiting on something to happen. But that's just the way it's got to be done, there's no getting out of it. That's the way you got to really, if you're seriously hunting. But if you can walk through the woods all day, they'll know where you at. They're going to hide from you. Even deer will do that. They can smell you 10 miles away, just about. You know what I'm saying?
You know what, Dennis, and I'm glad you touched on that because to me it's always been a big wonder. I wonder, mystery, how is it possible for any human to film a Bigfoot? Because there's many videos on people filming Bigfoot walking away or whatever, walking behind a set of trees, you know what I mean? Maybe 50 yards out or something. But they still see them. And as far as I know, we can't get close to them before they see us. You see what I'm saying? By the time we see them, they know we're there. So how do they let that happen? See what I mean? Because of course they got better eyesight, they got better hearing, they got way better vocals. You've heard the howl, oh my god, maybe a person that weighs maybe 400 pounds or something. They have that deep of and strong enough vocals to reach across a set of mountains. You know what I mean? So how is it that they let us get that close to them to be able to film them? You see what I'm saying?
9 times out of 10, Clarita, mostly it's an accidental meeting that you have with a Bigfoot or something like that. It's kind of, you're just in the best place at the right time. You just happen to get very lucky that way.
Yeah.
Because if you actually are going to hunt, you got to hunt the right way. And, and there's a certain right way and a wrong way to do everything. And like you said, they smell better, they see better, they can hear better. They're in tune with nature better than we are. They know what the birds tell them, or the crickets tell them, or the grasshoppers. They're listening. They're in sync with it all.
Exactly.
We're not. We're not. We're out of our environment, really, in many aspects. So you have to be very, very careful how you approach this. If you really want to have an encounter, when it comes to Dogman, I don't know if you really want to have that encounter.
No, I don't.
Because you might end up being on the meal list.
Yeah.
It's back on the menu, boys.
Yeah. There's a good percent. There's a good percent. There's a high percent that you're gonna become their meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't go out there looking for them. I'll tell you that.
But if you hunt something, Carlito, you gotta lay there and wait on it. You gotta wait on it. Make yourself as inconspicuous as possible, and you're kind of bushwhacking there. You know what I'm saying? But you're not attacking it, of course. I would hope you wouldn't try to.
Right.
But you're kind of bushwhacking mentality there. You're trying to catch it, in its environment. You've got to be very careful how you approach that and how you do it. To me, you're just wasting time walking through the woods, walking along, singing a song or whatever. You're not going to see anything. I'm sorry. You're going to be incredibly lucky if you do, kind of a situation. But when I go out looking for cryptids, I pay attention to everything around me. If something's out of place, if a rock's been overturned, or even if sometimes it's oak leaves are in amongst pecan tree leaves or something. It's something different going on.
Mm-hmm.
Something put that there, or some action instigated that, and you got to be aware of a lot of this stuff. When you're just basically, what you're basically really doing is you're stalking this thing, okay?
Right.
And if you're going to stalk it, though, you got to do it the right way.
Right. Now, let me ask you something. Stephen Dark Woods says Sasquatch let it happen. Some are starting to come out in the open. Those seem like they want to be known, which I agree with that. Do you think maybe, Dennis, out of all these years of researching that you've done and all these shows that you've been on, you've spoken to Kevin, what was his name? Gerhardt?
Yeah, Ken Gerhardt. Yeah.
Ken Gerhardt, yeah. And he's a well-known, cryptid researcher. He's been, of course, he's been on. Guy. Yeah, he's been on Discovery and Channel and all that. I've seen him. And so, like, what do you think? Maybe is their behavior changing on, like, that they're wanting to be seen now, as opposed to back in 1960s they didn't want to be seen. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think sometimes, Carlito, they want to be seen in order to warn you off. Hey, you're in my territory. I see you. I know you're here. I'm here. Now get out. Kind of
right. And that's where the rock throwing starts and all that, right?
Yeah. The rock throwing and all that. You're getting warned. And then the last warning may be you see they're actually showing you themselves,
Mm-hmm.
I would think maybe it might be time to make an exit if that happens, because things might be going down in a bad way. As we used to say in law enforcement, it can go a good way and it can go a bad way.
Right.
And you don't want to go the bad way if possible. But to me, if that were to happen to you, I would, say, hey, maybe it's time for me to, get on out of here, because he evidently knows I'm here, and he knows that he wants me to know he's here. So, all bets are off and kind of something that way. But in another way, though, it could be that there's so many people out in many aspects, campers and all this stuff going on, that they kind of like all wildlife can get kind of used to humans after a little while. They lose a little bit of their fear, maybe, and they might let their guard. I see deer do this a lot, and let their guard down.
I've seen a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of videos of deer coming in the backyard, and the owner of the property starts feeding them, leaving them food and stuff, and then he starts bringing them in, till they come up to his store's doorstep and eat off of his hand.
Yeah.
So that's learned behavior. Once they get your trust that you're not going to kill them, then they start behaving erratically as to what we know. That these wild animals act a certain way. You know what I mean?
Especially
so what makes you think that Bigfoot don't do the same? Right.
If there's a food factor involved, you're going to have that definitely. I've actually been in the mountains and approached by black bears that can smell the food. So you have to be very careful where you eat out in the woods.
Oh yeah, that's another. That's another.
A guest you don't want. I never will forget when I was just a kid too. This happened to me. I was up in the Great Smoky Mountains, and we stopped at a rest area. And it was like, it wasn't a very crowded rest area. There was a few people there, and everybody were eating off the tailgate there, And I had a sandwich, and I just kind of wandered off into the woods a little bit, and there was a mountain stream there,
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, just minding my own business, eating a sandwich, and I think it was a peanut butter sandwich or something. Anyway, I turn around and start back out, and I clear the woods to the rest area, and everybody starts looking at me, screaming and hollering and pointing at me, and I'm thinking, well, something unzipped here or what, what's going on here? Yeah. And I look back, and there's the biggest black bear following me out of these woods.
Wow.
So I immediately gave him my sandwich and called it a day.
He basically bullied you for your sandwich like a school kid. Like a school kid. Wow, that's awesome. I love that. I love that story, man.
But when it comes to that food, that barrier drops a little bit because that's part of their survival. And I think that kind of is the mentality for Bigfoot and maybe even Dogman and some of these other things. Is the mentality is that, hey, if I have to deal with you, I'm going to deal with you.
Right.
But on my level, and that's the way they feel about it.
Right. Hey, I also want to mention. I forgot to mention that you were law enforcement, right? For how many years was that, Dennis?
A good many years, but actually, about 6 years. I retired out of law enforcement. I actually worked at the hospital here for 30 years. I was also somewhat for several years a morgue attendant. We'll have to talk about that some other time. But anyway, I saw some interesting things as a morgue attendant. So I wore a lot of different hats through the years, but
okay. So
I
basically,
got some good experiences out of it.
So how long were you in law enforcement though? Was it like maybe 10, 20 years?
About 6 years.
6 years. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey,
I was kind of due to health reasons I had to retire out of it, but I enjoyed it. It was very interesting work. It was kind of a way to really serve your community in many aspects, help people out.
Exactly. Yes. I want to ask you a question that I've always wanted to ask a law enforcement officer.
Yep.
In person, and I'm pretty sure everybody wants to know this. What's the craziest thing you've encountered when you were in law enforcement, when you were a police officer?
I'll tell you one of the most really
that you've seen.
Things.
Yeah.
It was a really strangest, awful thing. Actually, we got called to a deserted cotton mill. And in this deserted cotton mill, and it had been deserted for many years, it's burned down now, as a matter of fact. It's maybe like 3 miles from where I'm at right now. We got called there, but some kind of activity was going on there, Carlito, and there was a sub-basement. Now, there's a basement and then a sub-basement under this.
Wow.
And we were looking around, and I go to finally we find the door to just me and my partner, that was it. We're looking around, and we go down to the sub-basement, and there's a big room there. And so I'm going to tell you something very bad had happened in this room. Because there was like blood on the walls, dried blood on the walls. There was a pentagram on the floor.
Ooh.
And this guy, of course, being interested in the occult and supernatural, this immediately got my attention. And I could tell right off that this was not an amateur thing here. This wasn't just amateur, somebody copying a rock group's album cover or nothing. This was actually some hardcore stuff here.
Right.
I could tell right off the different symbolism in the pentagram and all that. And the pentagram, is done to protect you. from something on the outside.
Is that right?
And what happens usually, I could tell immediately what was going on here. And I told my partner, I said, let's just leave, okay, because we don't need to really stay here. I said, there's nothing here anyway. Look, I don't know what kind of blood was on the walls. We never did something. Because, like I said, it wasn't long after this, the whole meal burnt down. Okay.
Do you think it was a satanic ritual site?
It was a satanic ritual had taken place there. And I could tell what kind it was. It was raising a demon ritual. Wow. Where you actually bring up a demon to supposedly do what you want it to do. But you're protected inside the pentagram from these negative. But here's the thing, I said, well, something bad had happened here because the pentagram was broken. It had been messed up. If you mess up the pentagram, then whatever's outside can get in. In other words, you've broken your seal of protection, and this was broken on the pentagram. And something very bad happened. I mean, you could feel it in this room, Carleo. It was so thick, evil was like fog in this room.
Wow.
It was, real freaky. And that's one of the most freakiest things in Lost Horse.
It was definitely satanic then, yeah.
Yeah.
And you said there was blood on the walls too?
Yeah, there was it was like it had been smeared on there or something. It was very strange. And all this we could see in our flashlights. There was no interior light in this thing, and we had to have our flashlights. But it was freaky. It was just something out of a horror movie. I mean, it was something that was
there was a movie back in the 80s. Trying to remember the damn name, but it was a guy. He was a Satanist, and he was a serial killer at the same time. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was a good movie. I'll have to get back with everybody on that, but can't remember the name of that movie. But it was a satanic guy. He would do rituals. He would kill people. That's why he was a serial killer. And until they caught him at the end or whatever, and that was the whole moral of the story, right? Where the police caught him at the end, and he finally stopped doing his satanic rituals, killing people. But it was a great movie. I can't remember the name of it, but it was great.
I think I've seen that movie. I can't think what. I think I've seen that movie.
It was a dark.
I'm a horror movie fan, so I've seen them all.
Yeah, me too.
But, to me, though, that is one of the most dangerous occult rituals that you can engage in, because if you do bring up the demon, actually it's always the other way around. The demon controls you don't control him. That's just the way that usually goes. And believe me, I have seen demons face to face, Carlito. They are just as real as you and I are here tonight, and they can do some pretty bad mojo on you if you're not careful on what you're dealing with there. My advice is to leave them alone completely. Because I have seen I'm going to say it this, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here, but I know of a lot of people 6 foot under right now put there by these forces. So they're very deadly and very, very real.
Right.
But that sort of, when I saw that as a law enforcement officer, when I saw that, I said, we don't really need to be here. We need to get this back on out of here. There's nothing we can do. Unless, of course, there had been, a body there or something, that would have been a different story.
Right.
But there was nothing there but just a few burnt-out candles, and that was about it.
Hey, my good buddy Thomas Cardos from North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project wants to know what state that was where you were in law enforcement.
In South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay. Okay.
Upstate, yeah.
That's when you lived there, because you don't live there anymore, right? You said you lived in what was it? Where do you live now?
Oh, I live right outside of Greenville, South Carolina is where I'm at now. That's probably 15, 20 minutes from Georgia. Okay. That close to the border, yeah. But we call this section of South Carolina the upstate, because we're up next door to the mountains,
How far is that from Charleston, Carolina? Because I've been there to Charleston, Carolina.
It's about 200 miles. I've been to Charleston dozens of times. It is to me, Charleston, South Carolina is one of the most haunted cities in the world.
Are you serious?
I've had some very freaky experiences in Charleston. Some of them were ghostly, some were demonic. I've done a lot of investigations. Matter of fact, I investigated a 300-year-old tavern down there. which was a hangout for Blackbeard the pirate. And all night long, I sat in the basement of this building on a 16th century seawall, part of the seawall, the original seawall of Charleston. And it was just like something, Carlito, we were talking about movies, it was like something out of a movie, because it was a trap door in the floor, and you would go down these stairs to the basement. And in the basement were two huge tunnels. They run under the street of Charleston. Now, like I say, this is not very far, not that far, maybe a block or two from the Battery of Charleston. But all night long, I sat there filming, trying to catch pirate ghosts, because that's what had been reported there. Matter of fact, it was a liquor store. It was no longer a tavern, but a liquor store, and it's one of the oldest liquor stores still in operation in this country, by the way. I think from the 16th century. Anyway, all night long I sat there in this basement, and I got the feeling of a presence with me down there. I was alone, with just me and my camcorder, and every now and then it was like a feminine presence. It was almost like I could hear like the rustle of a skirt, or and one time I felt like something brushed my cheek, like a woman would do, very feminine touch, like.
Right.
And I thought I smelled even one time perfume. So after the investigation was over, I went and talked to the owner. He was a really nice guy, and I said, I had a weird experience in the basement here. I said, have you seen any female pirate ghosts or something, And he said, no, I hadn't seen any. He said, the only ones I saw were men. And I said, well, that's very strange, because I got the feeling of a woman in your basement here, that was down. He said, well, that's freaky, because back in the 18th century, there were several killings of prostitutes in the city. And they kept their bodies in the basement because it happened in the winter and they couldn't bury them. The ground was frozen. And I said, oh, that explains what I was feeling down there, what was taking place. Because I could definitely feel like the presence of a woman down there. And that you kind of like to hear something that, kind of backs up what you're feeling, or what, you're experiencing. But that was freaky nevertheless. And all night long, Carlito, sitting in front of these two tunnels, and they were black. I could see little lights moving around, almost like you would see, lightning bugs or whatever, fireflies or whatever. But they were very, very dim, and I tried to capture them on my camera. A lot of paranormal activity is almost darn near impossible to capture on camera. Anyway, I couldn't get them on camera, but I could see them with my eyes. And that was freaky too. And I wondered for a long time, because, is the light playing, tricks on my eyes or what? But I had another person who stayed down there the rest of that night. He experienced the same thing.
Wow.
That's real freaky stuff. And Charleston is one of the most interesting cities that you will ever find. Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard of that quite a lot, actually, where people say that haunted houses, even if they're living in them, they see little lights, bouncing up and down around. And they say that those are the ghosts manifesting in small lights, or some people call them orbs.
Spiritual energy of some sort. That's what it basically is. Now, an orb, now I can make orbs for you all day long, because most of the time they're just dust, motes, and water droplets on film, especially with digital film. But when an orb is sort of, phosphorescent looking and sort of moves with an intelligence, that's when I consider it a true ghost light, as some people call it.
Yes.
And that's the interesting thing about some of these Earthlight anomalies. They almost have an intelligence. I talked to a guy that was an Australian, and he told me about the Min lights. There's a place down, I think, in Australia called Min. But these lights were seen, and he said he chased a pair of these lights down a back road in Australia one time. He chased them going about 90 mile an hour down this road, chasing these things. And he said when they got almost to the end of this road, and said both lights split, went around a tree, and disappeared. It's almost as if they had intelligence to them.
Right.
So you have to wonder, is this some type of spiritual energy or what's going on with that, And that's what I thought about that night while I was watching those lights in the darkness of those tunnels. And then when I come to find out that actually corpses had been stored there,
Yes.
it kind of confirmed what I was seeing to me. Yeah.
Right. Hey, I just wanted to put this out there real quick. I remembered actually I didn't remember. I looked it up on Google on my phone real quick. And the movie I was talking about was called The First Power. The First Power, guys. If y'all want to look that up, that's an awesome movie. It's a guy that he's a satanic killer.
The title of it now that you mentioned. That's a good.
That's a good movie. Yeah, The First Power was real good. Wish I could see it again somewhere. But
I think Johnny Depp did one similar to that. Johnny Depp did, what was that? The Seventh Gate or something like that. It was kind of similar.
Yeah. I think I remember that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's cool. And when you mentioned South Carolina Charleston being one of the most haunted cities, I did not know that. I had no clue that city was haunted like that. Now I know New Orleans is very haunted. And they got like voodoo things and voodoo rituals and voodoo witches and voodoo princes and all that. I mean, but I didn't know anything about Charleston.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I had a voodoo experience in Charleston many years ago. It's when I was a kid. I actually saw a real voodoo ceremony. It could have got me killed. I mean, I could have got in some very bad situation with that because these people, this was not a tourist thing. Okay, I mean, you go to New Orleans. A lot of times they'll give you this tourist thing. You can see after the ceremony and all that. That's mostly tourism. This was the real, honest to gosh thing, And that was very serious. I'm going to tell you something, since we're talking about satanic rituals and all that. It's very dangerous if you come up on a situation like that, especially out in the woods, and I have come up on several like that, where you could see that there had been a ritualistic ceremony of some type had gone on there. It's very dangerous, Carlito, because these people will kill to keep their secrets.
Yeah.
They do not want, information known about them. It's kind of like the way the Ku Klux Klan used to be many years ago. That's why they wore masks. They didn't want anybody to know who their real identity was.
Right.
Well, that's the same thing with this kind of satanic stuff. And you see a lot, and I've actually attended black masses. I've seen a lot of this stuff that goes on. Believe me, it is heavy-duty dark stuff. But anyway, a lot of times they utilize masks, the robes and all that, because they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be known for what they really are, in real life. And they will kill to keep that secret if possible. So you have to be very, very careful if you deal in these things because it can, come out in a bad way if you're not careful. But actually, when I was a kid, I was about 15, 16 years old. I actually saw a voodoo ceremony that took place in Charleston on the beach. Well, it was on the beach, sort of in not the beach, but the coastal swamp area like there. And the young boy that took me to see this, he said, "Now we got to be careful. We got to be quiet because they'll get us if they catch us, watching." And we had to crawl up a hill in order to look down and see this ceremony taking place. It was wild. We'll get into that some other time, but it was wild stuff. But like I say, Charleston has many different facets to it, very much like New Orleans. And it's the different cultures that collide there,
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense now. So it's very similar to New Orleans then. Okay. I didn't know that. Wow, okay. Cool.
Actually, I did a little investigation on where they hung the pirates back many years ago. There's a place on the Battery there where you can still go to where that. And here's the freaky thing. Just reminded me of that when we were talking about it. I went there that night, and it was like in the summertime. It was probably in the 80s, And I found the area where they hung the pirates, and they hung them so that they faced the harbor. It was kind of like hey, if you're a pirate, this is what's going to happen to you if you come here messing around. You know, it was
Right.
kind of a little billboard type thing for pirates. Anyway, I went to this area and was walking around, and I ran into a column. It's very strange. I never have had this happen before or since. This column of a mist, like it was there. It was just hanging in the air, and I went up to it and stuck my hand in it. It was cold. I mean, had to be like 65 or something degrees in this column, which was very weird because around me it was 80. It was in the 80s, you know.
Yeah.
And I walked around it and looking at it, and there was a couple other people there that actually saw it. And what was so strange about it is it just slowly went away. It didn't just drift away. It just slowly went away. It was almost as if it was, I'll say, to me, it would seem like maybe the beginnings of a manifestation of something.
Right.
There, you know. But I've actually run into cold spots and stuff like that before in different so-called haunted locations.
Yes.
Even warm spots, too, for that matter.
Really?
But that was freaky, real freaky, especially out in the open. And I said, I've always got to go back one day and check that battery out again, because that's a freaky place there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard about that, actually, since you're touching on that, about the cold, difference temperature, right? In a room where it's known to be haunted, you can feel the cold breeze pass by you. And that's the actual entity that's crossing right next to you, or right through you, or right by side of you, or whatever. Yeah, and they even have like ghost hunters. They have this thing where they can, measure the temperature. I watched like ghost hunters on whatever. I can't remember if it was Discovery or whatever. Those guys, they were like kind of buff, and they had like tight black shirts on. Well, yeah, they had that. They had where they would go explore, haunted houses or haunted, hospitals or whatever it was, and they would see how the change in the temperature. He said, "There's something here because the temperature just,
I've had that happen. I've had that happen to me.
Just dropped. The temperature dropped to cold."
One time I was sitting in a closed-in carport. Okay, it was a garage, and it had no ventilation. Okay, I mean, it's really, you don't usually ventilate a garage, for that.
Right.
And so it had no air conditioning or anything, and it was about like 90 degrees at night, and it was kind of closed in. It was warm in there. And while I was sitting there, Toledo, with my EMF detector, I saw it start to go up. I felt this coldness come close to me. It was cooler. Now, I'm not going to say it was freezing cold. It was just like
but it's colder than
a few degrees cooler than what was around me. And I could feel it, and it was just almost as if someone walked up to me.
Right.
And stood there a minute and then walked off. It was very bizarre. And I've had that happen several times, different locations. Really bizarre.
Yeah.
But anyway, but to see something outside like that, to be in, it was a very thick mist. It wasn't just something you had to squint hard to look at. I mean, it was undeniably a mist there. And I thought, well, first when I saw it, and I always try to go with a logical explanation on everything if I can, I thought maybe this is some kind of effect of the ocean being right there, or something. But I kind of ruled that out because it wasn't happening anywhere else. I mean, and just that one spot, and it went away. That was very freaky.
Yes, I know, man. That had to be crazy. And like Steve said, Steve Riley said, a good friend of mine, he said, I bet there's a lot of dead Civil War spirits in Charleston. And yeah, I bet there are, because that's the very far East Coast. That's when the Civil War was, going on, and I bet there is. Same as Mississippi, same as what's this? All those southern states, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Louisiana, all of them. I bet there's a shitload of those Civil War spirits that died there, right? And I bet anything that they're still there today, haunting. Those places, towns, small towns, all up and down the Mississippi River, and and all that, the southern states of the United States. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But I think I did an episode with the Ghost Asylum guys a couple of years back, where they actually, they specialize in hospitals and asylums and places like that. And well, actually, the guys I met with the whole team that was on their show. I think their episode was season 2, episode 8. It was one of their most popular, well-watched shows, where they actually went back to this hospital. It was called Cannon Memorial. It's up in North, I think near Grandfather's Mountain in North Carolina. And they had an incident where the boy, I think it's the youngest one, real nice guy, actually got taken over by a spirit of anger. And he was like cussing. He was just not like his personality at all. He was out in the parking lot trying to beat the parking lot up, trying to tear up stuff. He just went kind of bonkers there, And they said that something bad happened because it's not like he got over it, he got over it. But that's when they called me in and asked me what I thought. And first of all, they thought that it was, a human type spirit. I said, no, this doesn't sound like a human spirit. This sounds like a demonic type spirit. And so I counseled this boy. I told him, I said, look, your faith is going to have to secure you in this. Your faith is what you're going to have as the weapon against this, because this thing is waiting for y'all to come back inside. It's coming for y'all to come back. They're waiting for you. And you got to realize that. And I said, you need to put on that armor of light, that faith to face this, And he's a real nice boy, and he's a sort of more of a Christian type boy. And he took that to heart, And here's the interesting thing, Carlito. When they all went back, and I told the other boys what to do. I said, y'all need to pray on each level, protect yourself, going in and coming out. And all. But they wouldn't listen to me. They're macho guys. We're macho guys. We don't need that. Every one of them that night when they went back in got attacked by these things, except for that young boy. He came out of it okay. And they asked him later, why didn't it attack you? He said, well, I had on my armor. What? I had my, I had my faith. And I remember one of the guys, he got so bad, he said, I can't even think straight anymore. I got to leave out of here. I got to,
Wow.
Because they was under spiritual attack so very badly on these things.
Right.
But when you go to these places, you got to realize that's what you're going to run into. You're going to run into some bad guys there, bad spiritual guys. They're waiting to jump you,
Exactly. And I want to touch on that real quick now that you're talking about bad spiritual guys. There's a channel that I watched that I recently started following. It's a guy, I don't know if anybody has heard of him before, but he explores like abandoned mansions, abandoned buildings, abandoned asylums, stuff like that, abandoned hospitals, abandoned prisons, actually. And he goes in there. I don't know how he gets access to this, but he goes in there and he films everything. He's got like 2-3 different cameras. He's got thermal. He's got night vision. He's got the cool one. It looks kind of bluish. I don't know what the name is that is, but anyway, he's got like 3 different cameras or whatever. And he goes in there and he probably like leaves one over here to see if it can pick up anything while he's gone exploring, around the other side or on the second floor or whatever, right? Well, there was one that I was watching. It was actually, if you guys want to look it up, his name is Jeremy Explores with the X. So it's Jeremy, the name Jeremy, and then X, and then Plores. And he's got a whole lot. He's got a whole lot of. Yeah, have you seen him? He's got a whole lot of, and he goes alone too. That's the crazy part. He goes alone. He doesn't have a team with him.
I've done a lot alone myself there.
I've
been a lone wolf for a long time, but you got to be very careful if you're alone. I mean, somebody needs to know where you're at.
Exactly.
Definitely, somebody you need to have it. I call it the connection, outside connection. You need to have a connection that knows to check in with. But I'm gonna say this, okay? When you talk about places like battlefields, hospitals, and I worked at a hospital for 30 years. That's one of the most locations I was ever at. I had a lot of weird experiences there. But these places are magnets for trauma, pain, sorrow, and suffering. That's exactly what draws demonic spirits into it. They love that. That's like kids with candy. They just eat it up because they feed negativity feeds off of negativity.
Right.
That's just the way it works,
Yes.
And that's why I warn people: if you're going to go to these places, if you're going to investigate, protect yourself going in and coming out. You wouldn't believe how many cases I've had of so-called ghost hunters bringing something home with them.
Yeah. Attachments, right?
Yeah. You got to really be careful. You got to be very careful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I know. And, a lot of people that like Alfred Santoriga, he's a real good friend of ours. He's a, very knowledgeable in all the whole, high strangeness spectrum. And he also says that, you have to be protected, spiritually protected. Make sure, nothing attaches to you. I have another friend. His name is Abe Sears. He's a very spiritual kind of guy.
I have done,
and he also wears protection on his. Yeah. He wears I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's like the special stone. Selenite. He says it's called selenite.
Benedict.
Yeah.
He wears St. Benedict metal that's supposed to be really good for that. But let me tell you this, Carlito. I have done probably thousands of cleansings of these places. I've done tons of them. I have been attacked many times during this. I remember one time I was in a train station, an actual train station. This was kind of interesting. And I was doing the salt, the sea salt. I was spitting it out. And as I walked into this one area, something just knocked that thing smack out of my hand. And it went all the way across the room and hit the wall. I mean, that's how hard it knocked this out of my hand. And I didn't say anything. You don't let it impede you. You don't let it stop you. I went back, I got the salt, and I continued. And afterward, I asked the lady that knew about the train station. I said, is there something very strange about this one particular area where that incident took place? She said, oh, that is where they stacked the coffins in the train transport in the Civil War.
Wow.
And that was the one area that I was in where that happened. So, that's another kind of confirmation of what's going on with that,
Yeah.
If you run into these places, and like I said, like with that room, it was just pure evil, you run into that, it's either, you better be protected. You better have something backing you up because you run into some heavy-duty mojo there. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not good.
Well, I wanted to just finish off what I was saying. Hey, what's up, Nighthawk? High Strangeness Podcast. He just joined the chat. What's up, William? How you doing, brother? I wanted to tell you, Dennis, about the incident. Well, the video that I've seen about this guy, right? Because he goes explores everything. This Jeremy Explores guy. He goes explores everything. And I've seen quite a few videos of him, but there was this one video that he did at a sanitarium. Okay, sanitarium. If you guys want to look that up, Jeremy Explores Sanitarium, whatever. But so it was complete darkness. He said he felt something when he was there. He was hearing noises at the very far end of the building there, and he put up a camera right there on top of one of those boxes, right where you heard. Oh, because he heard something go boom, 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 like fall, right? So something made something fall, right? So he went, inspected. There was nothing there, but he put a camera right there, right? He kept on going to explore and whatever. And then he came back, and when he came back towards the camera where he was going to grab the camera, whatever, I'm going to say maybe, 20, 30 feet, he stopped because his camera turned off. Like it was drained, the camera, the battery or whatever, but the other one was still filming towards him. Okay, so you could see it from the other camera that was on top of the boxes. It was looking straight at him with night vision and whatever. And he kind of crouched down to change the batteries or whatever from the thing. And as soon as he was doing that, something pushed him, like boom, like pushed him off his feet, like if I would go like that, boom, just push him where he was just kind of kneeling down on his feet, but no balance or whatever, right? And I just go up to him and just push him, boom, and knock him back about maybe 4 or 5 feet or something. You know what I mean? That's how far he was knocked back, and it was shown. You could see it on the other camera, the one that was with the night vision. You could see when he was changing the thing, and then boom, he was knocked down like that. So there was an entity there, bad one at that, that pushed him and didn't want him there. And he said, hey, check out this, yeah, that was crazy. I'm like, wow. And that's the only one I've seen of him where something crazy happened with the entity that was in the building, in the abandoned building.
The holy grail of spiritual research is the full-bodied apparition. Actually, I saw one.
Right.
And it happened, things like that. When these things like that's Toledo, when they happen, you're never really expecting it at that time. If you could, I told this to people before, if I could make the paranormal perform when I wanted it to, I'd be a very rich man. Okay.
Yeah.
I could do whatever I wanted then, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But I was sitting with a camera one day in this lady's house. And then she had just the normal haunting type stuff, doors opening and lights going off and all, just the regular time, nothing real bad, And but she was disturbed by it. She wanted some help with it. So I was setting this camera up, and it's special cameras to record in darkness. Okay, and what I'm talking about without an hour light, that's the one I was always trying to hit on, a camera that can actually see what the human eye sees in certain conditions,
Right.
But anyway, I was setting this camera up, and it was a long hall. Let me give you a quick layout. On this side of the hall, there were 3 bedrooms, 3 doors, 3 bedrooms. And on the other side was 2 doors. One led to a living room, and another door led to a dining room. And behind me was the kitchen. Okay. I'm just going to give you a layout. Now, I was setting this camera up facing down the hall with the kitchen behind me. And I had set up a laser blanket. You know what a laser blanket is. And it was a grid of lasers, and it's supposed to capture shadow movement, And I wanted that's what I wanted to try to pick up on the camera, okay? Well, anyway, I'm getting all this set up, and I've already sided with the camera, but I take it off battery, and I'm going to plug it into the wall, okay? Bad mistake in my part. I'd unplugged the camera and shut it down and was getting ready to plug it in the wall, and looking down the hallway, I seen this old lady pass from one of the bedrooms and go into the living room. And I can tell you to this day what she looked like. She had on a flowery house coat, had white hair, it was scraggly, but it was not real long, but it was kind of down shoulder length. And I could even see bedroom shoes she had on, okay? And she just passed that quickly to the right, to the left of me, into the living room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said, I wasn't even thinking about it being a ghost, okay? I said, well, who the heck is that? Because it looked so real. It wasn't, you couldn't see through her or nothing. I mean, it looked solid, And I said, well, somebody else is in this house or what? So I go back and I tell the lady, I go in the living room and look. There's nothing in the living room. And the living room and the dining room connected. I come back out, and I'm back out on the hallway again. And the front door in the living room was fixed where she never used the front door. So it was fixed up where you couldn't open it and go out, okay? So I go back out in the hall, and I go to the kitchen. I said, ma'am, is there somebody else in this house with us? And she said, no, just me. You told me to wait here in the kitchen. I said, yeah. So I said, well, I just saw somebody pass the hall down, and I said she had on a house coat. I told her, she said, oh my God, that's my mother. She died in that room.
Wow. So that was a full body apparition because you seen her completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Dennis, I have a question from Steve Riley, man. He wants to know this, and he asked it twice, so I said I have to put that up there. He says, can they attach themselves to your equipment? Is that possible?
That's a possibility, yeah. That's a possibility. Yeah.
I've never heard about that. Never heard of
you have to be very careful, because I'll tell you why. A lot of times, like you were talking just now about the batteries draining, and I've had that happen many times, they are utilizing your equipment, okay? And it's just like somebody with dirty hands putting their hands on your car or something. They're going to leave fingerprints. They're going to leave a little bit of their cell phone there. Yeah. And that's what happens with your equipment, too. So you got to be very careful with your equipment. It's good to kind of cleanse it, too, like to kind of protect yourself and protect your equipment. I'm going to tell you something, okay? When I was in law enforcement, I had my bullets blessed. I had my gun and my bullets blessed.
Really?
Because I did not want them used for the wrong things, only for for the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had them blessed, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
So even material objects can be used for bad purposes if you're not careful. You got to really watch out with a lot of that. And many times when somebody comes to me and says, Mr. Carrol, something going on in my house, something weird, and nothing's happened like this ever before, the first question I ask, what, have you brought anything in the house lately?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a quick story. I had a woman call me one time complaining about all kind of freaky stuff going on in her house, bad smells, all kind of weird stuff, and that shouldn't have been there. And I said, well, is there anything you bought recently? Something new that you brought in the house, something that you got from somebody? I said, well, she said, no, but I did buy the sofa at a yard sale. I said, oh, really? I said, well, go back to where you bought it and find out if you could find out anything on the history of that sofa.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me back a couple of weeks later. She said, my God, I found out that a man committed suicide on that sofa.
Wow. Now I have heard.
Get rid of the sofa. Get rid of the
right,
sofa.
Exactly.
You'll be all
exactly,
right,
because there was something attached to it. And you know what? I've heard of that, and I've actually seen it from a long, long time ago. Do you remember the movie The Exorcist 2, where they found that little artifact in the digging, when they were digging? They found that little, bird looking like artifact, and it was supposed to be possessed with the demon inside of there. And the guy that took it home, he was possessed with that demon. You remember that? Right. Exorcist 2?
Well, if you might remember in the very first Exorcist, they keep switching back to that statue. You remember that?
Yeah.
The statue of the ball, or whoever it was supposed to be, Dagon, is a demonic god, actually. Mm-hmm. And that was establishing a connection to that. By the way, I spoke with William Peter Blatty, the man who wrote The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. Brilliant man. And here's one interesting thing he told me. I didn't talk to him very long. I would have interviewed him. He's deceased now, of course. But I said, he told me, Dennis, when I first wrote this book, I was not a believer. I believe now.
Wow. Yeah. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
Freaky stuff, man.
Yeah, and that's very well known that entities drain batteries as well. Even paranormal things, even supernatural things too. They drain batteries. Even cryptids are known to drain batteries. Yeah. Yeah. A good friend of mine told me that.
Like I said about the werewolf, which is connected to, which really I don't consider it a cryptid, but it is connected to black magic. Very much like the skinwalkers and all that.
Yes,
you have that supernatural element going on there. You may have a supernatural connection with some cryptids like Dogman.
Yes.
Let's look at Dogman a minute, okay?
Yes.
See, that doesn't look like that's something that naturally occurs in nature to me.
No,
I could be wrong,
No.
But
Bigfoot looks more naturally, from Mother Nature. Ape type, like man, like half ape, half man. But dogs, no. Dog, that's way different. And it's really not dog. It's really a wolf man. Half man, half wolf. So that doesn't seem natural. And I think that's definitely supernatural.
Well, like I said before, Carlito, the werewolf has a reason to be a werewolf. In other words, he was a man.
Right.
He turned into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Magically. The Dogman is not like that. The Dogman is, if the Dogman exists, and I think he probably does, he's Dogman 24/7, okay?
Exactly. Where the werewolf ain't. The werewolf either wants to turn himself into a werewolf or is cursed to turn himself into a werewolf.
It has to, yeah.
It's not like, what I mean, you can't just. So that's the difference between the Dogman and a werewolf. That the werewolf transforms into a werewolf, and he's a man by day or whatever, but in demonology, Kalita, it is recognized that there is a wolf spirit, which reminds me very much of the Dogman. There's a wolf spirit. As a matter of fact, Ed and Lorraine Warren, a very famous hunter, paranormal hunters, actually had a case in England where this man believed that he could turn into a wolf. And he actually tore
a steel cell door off of the cell he was in. The mind, the human mind, is a vast unexplored area. I don't know what the will and the spirit of the human mind can produce. And that's what you're talking about with the werewolf and the skinwalkers and some of these shapeshifters.
Oh yeah, because we were saying
the wheel.
And we were saying we were mentioning that the werewolf in Europe is basically the skinwalker in the United States. That's basically what the interpretation is, where they transform into a certain animal or beast or whatever.
The skinwalker also is called a Diablero, the Diablero or the Bruja, which is simply terms of witch, is what it basically is. They're a witch.
Yeah, Bruja, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruja for Tommy. Tommy was out there. Bruja is for woman witch, and Brujo is for a man witch. Which is a man, So I want to mention this real quick. Nighthawk says, Carlito, did Dennis tell you about his werewolf encounter? What's that about, Dennis? Can you tell us?
Actually, there's a werewolf encounter. Actually, when I was very young, my first case that I ever had was a werewolf case, by the way. I was about 16 years old, and I had a report where this guy, I had heard about him, that he had had a werewolf encounter, and he lived several blocks away from me. So I said, well, hey, I got to go check this out, Mm-hmm. And so I tracked the guy down, and I got his statement of what he told me happened. Just one Saturday night, and I think he might have had a few drinks too many, I don't know. But one Saturday night, he was coming back home, and there's an area of where I lived was called the Mill Hill. It's actually a mill village where it was based around a big cotton mill, and that's where all the houses were, and all this is where this guy lived. And in the mill villages, you had what were called back alleys. They ran behind the houses. That's where they would go pick up trash and all that, It's where you had your trash can in the back alley. Right. Well, anyway, he was coming back through the back alley, and he was going to the back door of his house. And he said that there was some trash cans there, and this thing stood up behind the trash cans. And he said it stood so much. So I think he said somewhere around 6 to 8 foot tall, and it stood up. And he said it looked like a dog, but it had other characteristics. He said it was all messed up, the way it looked. He said it was just like it had been mangled up. It had an awful look to it, and it had 2 pointy ears, so very much like the Dogman sometimes described pointed ears. And it reminded me what he was talking about. It sounded like a German Shepherd kind of a thing, the way German Shepherd looked. So anyway, he said it scared him. He peed himself. He ran. He said he fell down several times trying to get in the back door of his house, get in the house. It scared him so bad. And he said it was a werewolf, which I always wondered if perhaps, if his werewolf had been in a bottle that night or what. But I went and I looked around the trash cans, and sure enough, there were prints there. But it was so muddied up, and they were one on top of the other, I couldn't make out what kind of prints they were, But years later, I had another sighting, and this not been maybe 10 years ago that this happened. I had a report of not too far from where I lived of the big black cats. You've heard of the big phantom black cats. Well, this was a very reliable hunter told me he had seen this thing. I said, well, hey, I got to go check this out, So I went to the location, and while I was there, it was like a big field that led to the woods. It was off the side of the road. I parked on the side, parked my truck, got out. I walked out into the field. Now, this was grass high, almost over your hips. Grass was that high. It was broom straw. You know what broom straw is. And I come up on these tracks, and they're like in their soft mud a little bit. Unfortunately, I wasn't ready for a track. I couldn't cast it. I didn't have plaster Paris or anything. I I was just kind of looking around. I hadn't really thought I'd find anything, which that's the way it goes when you're not prepared. But anyway, I see this track, and honest to God, Carlito, it is a track. I don't know. It had to be this big, and it was a dog track. It wasn't a cat track. It was or the track of a wolf. But there are no wolves where I live. Okay, they're not supposed to be. But this thing was huge, and that's what reminded me of the dog. Huge. And of course, you can tell immediately the difference in a cat and a dog track, because a dog cannot retract his claws or his nails, and a cat can. And I said, hey, this is not a cat. This is one freaking big mother of a dog or a wolf or something, or whatever it is, And here I am in the middle of this grass field. I can't see what's in here with me. And I had the feeling all along something was watching, that the hair on the back of the neck kind of feel. Something was watching me, And I said, well, heck, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave now, because I've done all I can do. But the tracks, I could tell, led into the woods, not far. And I said, well, I'm going to come back when I'm armed and really check this out, And I did. A couple of weeks later, I came back, found a few more tracks. I mean, they were freaking big, but I didn't cast them.
Wow.
They were freaking big, but I couldn't find anything. I looked around, no cats, no dogs, anything. But it was really a freaky incident, and that was sort of like a run-in with, I would say, kind of a quasi-run-in with a dog, man, or some type of a thing like that. It wasn't the big black cat I was looking for.
Now, you know what? Also, the differences between a Dogman and a werewolf is that I think, and that I've looked into, the werewolves have more man-like features in their face. You know what I'm saying? Whereas not so much dog or wolf in this case. They have more like human eyes, more than than wolf eyes. See what I'm saying? They have more human nose and human mouth kind of, but with the big fangs, and that's what I've always looked into, the folklore, the European folklore of a werewolf. Yeah, where and they don't have the what is it called, the digitigrade feet like the dogs do and whatever. They have like human feet.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what made me think that day maybe I had blundered onto a dog man type thing.
Right.
It definitely was not human. I tell you what, when it comes to the werewolf, you got one important thing you got to remember, and it's that blending, like you say, of the human. But it's also, you got to remember this: what makes the werewolf so deadly and dangerous is he has the mind of a man.
A man, exactly. That's more dangerous.
And now Dogman, although we call him Dogman, the only reason we call him the man, we give him the man parts, he stands like a man. He's bipedal. That's it. Right. Really, he has the characteristics of an animal more. He's 99.9% animal more than the werewolf is, you might say.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's more of a big timber wolf that walks on two legs, that, gets up on two legs and walks, perfectly with no problem. You know what I mean? Whereas dogs, as we know, even when they get up and dance, they kind of stiff their hind legs, and they can walk and they can jump and they can hop or whatever, but you can see their legs are not comfortable because that's not their natural state. See, but dogmen are known to be like comfortable on their hind legs, and even including running faster.
I've actually seen a bear. Carlito, that walk around just as good as you and I on both legs. He had some kind of injury. He couldn't do the four-leg thing, but he had adapted. He could walk as good as you and I on two legs continuously.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have seen dogs do that because they lose their front limbs, so they have to learn how to walk on two legs only. See what I'm saying? I've seen that too. And they look like more natural than, Well, I guess it might be the weight proportion thing, since they don't have their front limbs, and they can walk better.
About this.
As opposed to having their front limbs. Yeah.
Here's something else you got to think about when you're talking about Dogman. Could it possibility be, if you saw a bear like that walking through the forest at night, dark light, could that not be mistaken for Dogman as well? He's got a muzzle, he's got the ears, So you had to wonder how much misidentification is going on here. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, because if you think about it, like a bear, like a skinny bear, because we know normally they're fat, they got bellies, but a skinny bear, maybe a malnutrition bear, you know, that was outcasted from their family or something, he might be thin, and if he gets up on two legs, he looks like a man, you know, like a thin man, like, and not so much as that, like a bear, you know what I mean? So that could be a mistaken identity, like you said.
Yep.
But hey, so also I wanted to and thank you for talking about that about Dogman. Now, when you were in law enforcement, did you ever see or hear or learn about either Dogman or Bigfoot when you were in law enforcement? Did you ever run into anything?
Oh yeah, I've had several investigations, even when I wasn't in law enforcement. There were several times that we, you know, of course, when cops sit around, they talk and do a lot of sitting watching, you know, and we talked a lot about different things. And I'm always bringing up some kind of paranormal stuff, but I'm a paranormal guy. They all know that. So anyway,
well, it's all related.
They would. I've heard of a lot of them that really say they have heard more than they've seen. In other words, they've heard what could possibly be some kind of howls that just didn't sound like a dog or didn't sound like a coyote. We all think we all pretty well know what a coyote sounds like, especially during mating season.
Right.
So I've had a lot of them tell me they've actually heard and seen shapes and all that, but nothing real important. But I'll tell you I'll tell you about my first Bigfoot case I ever investigated. And this has been, I guess 40 years ago. Anyway, when I worked at the hospital, like I said, everybody knew my reputation at the hospital. And I had a guy come to me and said, I want you to talk to my friend. He had run in with Bigfoot, you know. I said, well, that's interesting. I definitely want to find out about that, you know. So I met with this guy and his girlfriend at a restaurant. And you know, Carlito, when you go to interview somebody, there are certain telltale things that will tell you that the people you are interviewing are very earnest in what they say. They're very real. They're very truthful. And I could still see fear in these people, okay, especially the man, because he's the one that had more of the encounter than the woman did. But here's the story. And this is like something out of a horror movie, too, by the way. They were at a dead-end cul-de-sac type place out in the country on the back road, kind of a lover's lane, of course.
Right.
And at the very end of this, there was a big sign said "dead end." By the way, as if you need to know that, you know. I don't know what brain does that, but anyway, he said that they were in a Volkswagen that night, a little Volkswagen Beetle, okay, and doing what lovers do. And the girl says, I hear something. Somebody's walking around out there in the bush, you know, because they were surrounded by the woods, you know, on this dirt road. And it's just like something out of a horror movie, okay? And the guy says, well, heck, somebody messing around with us here. You know, he got mad, you know, somebody messing around with us here. So he said he got out of the car with his flashlight. He had one of those big police flashlights. I carried one for many years. 5-cell flashlight. And he got out, and wouldn't you know it, about the time he got out and turned it on, the batteries went dead on him. And he said, but as he walked to the, you know, just kind of across the dirt road where he was parked there, to that sign, he said something come out of the woods behind that sign. He said it was maybe 2 foot higher than the sign, okay? He said it loomed. It was just a shadow of what he could see because it was dark. As you and I, we've been in the woods. We know how very dark it can be when you're far from civilization, okay? Right. Especially on a back country road. And it was dark. He said there's a shadow come out of the woods on him, you know, and he said it scared him so bad. He just immediately jumped back in the car. And he started, he was so scared that it freaked her out because she had never seen him get scared like that. Because, you know, I don't mind telling you, he said, I peed my pants, Mr. Carrol. He said, it scared me that bad. that I was freaking out. He jumped in there, and then, you know, the old Volkswagens, you had to do the stick shift thing. You know?
Yeah, I
And
remember.
so he cranking it up, trying to put this thing in the cart. And he said, all of a sudden, the back end of the Volkswagen was pointed out of the road, by the way.
Hmm.
The back end of the Volkswagen come up off the ground. Something picked it up, the back end of the Volkswagen.
Right.
He said, because he said, I was putting it in gear, the wheels were turning, going, but I wasn't going in.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know where the motor on the Volkswagen's in the back. That's the heaviest part.
Right.
And he said it was almost as if something picked us up and just kind of pushed it. Just kind of pushed it out and let it go. That's when he took off and left.
Yeah, you probably hauled ass out of there, right?
Yeah.
As soon as he let it go.
Boy, he was gone.
It was gone.
And he said, I don't know what it was. He said, I can't really tell you it was Bigfoot, but it was huge. And he said and here's another thing, he said it smelled terrible. It smelled like a dead skunk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I said, okay, oh boy, I got to go check this down, you know. Definitely. So unfortunately, before I could get off work to do it, it was right before the weekend, it rained. It rained. But I still went. I found the place. And listen to this. I measured the sign. And he said this thing was 2 foot at least over the sign. Over the sign, yeah. That thing was 8 foot off the ground.
What? So it must have been about 10 then. And I was about to ask you how tall.
And here's one more thing. I could still smell that dead skunk smell.
Really?
I couldn't find any prints. The rain had probably washed anything away. And where it had been standing, it was not on the dirt road, unfortunately. If it had stepped out on the dirt road, it might have left some prints.
Left some prints.
But it was in the wood line. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And where did this happen? What state or area? General area?
Yeah, it's the area we call Broadway Lake. And here's another interesting thing. This Broadway Lake area, which is probably from where I'm at tonight, probably about 20 miles. You know.
South Carolina?
Well, back then it was in the country. This is about 40 years ago. It was pretty countrified. Now it's got suburbs all growed up around it. And I guess that road's long gone, I guess. But there's an interesting thing about it, Carlito. There was a very famous UFO sighting not very far from that location.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's another thing I was going to ask you. If when you were in law enforcement, did you see anything like that, like a UFO, or when you were there? I'm pretty sure you know that there have been, but I'm saying when you were there, did you ever know?
Well, I had a interesting UFO experience of my own about maybe 8 years ago. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we were called to several locations while I was in law enforcement to check out some weird lights in the woods, things like that. We also have observed several things in the sky that did not look right either. Let me tell you this: I was on the way to work one morning before my shift, and it was just getting daylight. Okay, and I've been interested since I was a kid. I've been interested in astronomy. I love astronomy. It's a hobby of mine.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at the red light, waiting for the light to turn. You know. And I look up in the sky, and like I say, it's just getting light, but I could see a big star. And I said, well, what the heck is that, Venus? Or what planet is that? And while I'm looking at it, Carlito, it does a left turn, boom, it's gone. Just like that. And I've never seen anything that could move like that a human being would be in. Okay? Yeah, I mean, it was just gone that quick, like it was shot out of a cannon, faster than that.
Wow.
But my own UFO experience took place about 8 years ago, and like I say, for over 50 years now, I've listened to all this paranormal stuff. I like the whole pie, not just one slice.
Yeah, me too.
And it's all interesting shit out to me. But anyway, I heard all these stories, and I've investigated UFO sightings. I've heard people tell about them, but until you have your own experience, it puts a different perspective on everything, you know. But about 8 years ago, I had a little circuit. I used to walk uptown, small town, and it's not a real big town, but it was about maybe I would do like a 5 or 6 mile turn uptown just for my health, I'd walk up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was parked there that day, and I had gotten back to where my original point was, and it was the sidewalk, and that's where my truck was parked.
Mm-hmm.
And I was cooling off. Now, this was sort of a fall day, and the clouds were hanging real low. You know how your clouds will hang low before it starts to rain on you, you know.
Right.
And the clouds were hanging, so I'd watched them all during my walk. Hey, and I won't get caught in the middle of the downpour out here, you know. So I had watched them all day, and I was standing there on the sidewalk, and I've taken pictures of the location where it happened. I mean, and like I say there again, like the paranormal or the supernatural, whatever name you want to give it, high strangeness never waits for the opportunity. It just gets you when it wants it. I wasn't even thinking about anything like this. And I was looking back over, I was standing there cooling off, you know, standing on the sidewalk at a fence, looking back over the horizon. I saw something in the clouds, moving in and out of the clouds like. And I could see the shape of it, but couldn't get a clear look. Just every now and then, though, it would get to the thinner clouds, and it just slowly came toward. It was moving out. It wasn't slow, but it looked. You know how you look at an airplane from a different perspective? It looks like it's hanging there almost for a while. You know, that's what this did. And I was looking at it as it got close to me. It was a huge black triangular shape. I could see it in the clouds. You know, behind the clouds, but a very thin clouds, you know, so I could almost see it completely. And it was a dull, dark metal, and it had a very strange, light, purplish glow to it. It had no running lights at all on it. Okay, there may have been places on it, thinking back, that may have been where lights were, but they weren't on. Okay, this thing come straight over my head. You know, talking about dropping your jaw on the ground. I mean, it got me, you know, completely. Came straight over me, huge as a football field, okay? Now, I played football back when I was younger, and I know how big a football field is. And you would have had a hard time putting this thing down in a football field, okay? Carlito, it was fast and completely silent. Eerily silent. Made no noise at all. And was just like a bullet over my head that gone that quick. It was almost like the image you see in a flash of lightning. I could see it. I know what it was. And I've had people ask me years later, what do you think it was? And I say, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I really don't know. But if we have something, and it seems very military looking to me, okay? If we have something like that, we could take over the world tomorrow. You know? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know all about that.
That's an interesting question there. I have been told about certain things not to talk about. You know, certain things we don't talk about. You kind of, you know, take oaths and stuff that you don't want to reveal. Some things that you've been told not to reveal. But it was nothing of something. Most of the time, nothing of a paranormal type nature. But if you were to go to the police chief and say, hey, I think I saw a UFO last night, he said, well, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's their code, right? Like, whatever you see, whatever, don't talk about it. Like, it didn't happen. That's what I've noticed a lot. And yeah, what you were saying about the speed, yeah, well, you know, of course, most people here know that I've had, you know, three UFO encounters myself. And yeah, I remember seeing them all just zip away, just like supersonic speed, like it's crazy. Never seen anything like it.
There's no way humanly possible you can be in any kind of a ship or anything. Any way we have possible for you to move at the speed like that and not be mush when they open the door to get you out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Think about this. If you're in an automobile accident and you're traveling at 50 miles an hour, the car certainly stops, but you don't. You still going 50 miles an hour. Yeah. Believe me, I've seen what it does. I've pulled a lot of people out of wrecks, and I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that. The perfect example,
like that, you know.
Yeah, the perfect example for that is those back in the day commercials where they, you know, don't drive without your seatbelt thing, whatever. And they used to show a mannequin in a car hit a wall and boom, you know how the mannequin would rock back and forth. All the windows would shatter and all. I mean, that's a perfect example. Like we can't withstand that type of power, stopping like on the
That's
down.
why
Like
they tell you so much about your seatbelt. No, I don't like seatbelts. Nobody likes them. But I think they're necessary if you want to live. I mean, if it's that one thing you can do to protect you, you're stupid not to do it. Right. Because I have seen what you look like after you go through the windshield when you don't wear a seatbelt. It's not good.
Exactly. No, yeah. Hey, Dennis. Well, it's time. It's about time for us to wrap it up, buddy. I do want to say before everybody leaves, I do want you to tell us where, or tell everybody where to find you. Tell them about your books, where they can find your books as well. Please, if you could do that for us, bro.
Okay, I've got all the connections for my books on my website, which is DennisWCarroll.com. That's DennisWCarroll.com. And I can also be reached at ghostwolfdc@gmail.com. And my books can be found. All you got to do is search my name, Dennis Carrol, on Google, or also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. You can find my books.
Yeah, because I actually clicked on one of your books, and it sent me to Amazon. I think it was Amazon.
They
Prime or something. Yeah. So that's cool. That's awesome, man. What's the name of your books? Because I know I've seen them, but can you tell the people what the name of your books are? Because it's 4 of them.
Okay, well, I got 2 of them here. I got this is Beyond the Shadows.
Okay.
And it's a field guide to the paranormal. This shows you all the different investigative techniques and things you can do out in the field, whatever type of investigation you may be wanting to do. It's a good little book to have. But my favorite is The Road Unseen, a paranormal journey into high strangeness. I got a lot of really freaky stuff in this book. This is one of my favorites, and I'm almost like an encyclopedia in a way to the area of high strangeness. I talk about my UFO experience, the government shadowing me, my run-in with the Men in Black, and a lot of different things you might want to read about.
Cool, awesome, man. Do you think it's possible for me to share your link that you sent me to my group, maybe, and that way people can just click on it? I'll just tell everybody, hey, this is Dennis Carroll's website. Yeah, and they can just click on it, and they'll take. Yeah, okay, all right. I'll go ahead and share it on my group then, Dennis. Yeah, I'll do that. That way everybody can go and click on that and go straight to your.
My Facebook is whatever you want to do.
Okay,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thank you, and thank you for coming on tonight, Dennis. Thank you for such a short notice, also of me inviting you to my show. And thank you, man. I think we had a awesome night tonight. Everybody's agreeing with that. Also, everybody's saying it was a great show. Yes, and so thank you, and thank you all, everybody in the chat. Also, and thank you. Anybody that comes in afterwards, after the live, and just checks the video out or whatever. Thanks everybody. I really appreciate it, and it was great having you here, Dennis. Thank you, man. I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on some other time, brother, because I know you have many encounters and stories to tell us. You're like a cryptid and paranormal encyclopedia, pretty much. Thank you, brother. Yes, sir. Right. Absolutely, man. Well, so we'll definitely have you back, man. And thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Like I said, Dark Woods, Steve Riley. I like to thank them because they're guys that that are basically my closest cryptid friends. Tom from North Carolina, cryptid, and Primal Cry, Dark Woods. Like I said, Aussie, I've seen you before. Thank you for coming. Nighthawk, Steve Riley. I'd like to give a shout out to a lot of people that showed up tonight. Country Boy Cryptids, Chris Reeds. Thank you. And we'll see y'all on the next one, guys. Thank y'all all for coming tonight. I really appreciate y'all, and I'm guessing Dennis does too, for coming in tonight and joining us. So with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next show. And thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out.